And we are live with the fabulous Keri Rodrigues, founder and president of the National Parents Union, also longtime organizer, also the parent of multiple children who she has had to fight for. So she comes at this work that we talk about every day, not just from the fancy book learning perspective, but from the perspective of a real person who works with real people every day. Keri, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Chris. And that's why I'm in this mess, because this is messy work, very messy.
Very messy.
We got
so you started the National Parents Union when?
The National Parents Union. So it's been an idea that's been in the works for about 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started our organization here in Massachusetts Parents United, one of my mentors was Andy Stern, who I'd worked with at SEIU, because I come from the labor world and, had worked with him for a long time. So when I was saying to Andy, I'm going to start a parent union here in Massachusetts, he's like, that's great, but understand you're not going to have a mothership that's going to be able to swoop in and help you, because that's the magic of unions. You have these big, giant buildings on DuPont Circle that have a whole lot of money and a whole lot of power. In Washington, D.C. And if you're in trouble in your state, you can call up to the mothership and say, hey, I need $20 million for a local campaign. We didn't have that. So it's always been pushing me to think about, well, it's great, you should do this. But, how do you build solidarity with other folks doing this work? How do you build connection with them? And, how do you start thinking, how you have that national voice? So it was always towards an eye. So this is like 2 years ago, we started talking about this idea. And we know we're not unique here in Massachusetts. We were able to do something pretty special where we're the largest parent advocacy organization in Massachusetts. But there are people doing beautiful work all over the country. And, Ed Post and some of the folks that, founded Brightbeam, you guys were, part of the inspiration of that, because we got to, build a network and build friendships with folks doing beautiful work across the country. It was our philosophy that, if you give folks, a little bit of professional development, because a lot of us, like you said, come into this work like, this work turns me into hamburger on a regular basis. I got into this fight because my special needs kid got suspended 36 times in kindergarten. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? That's not happening to him. Because I was expelled from public school when I, was 15 years old. It was not going to happen to my kids. I consider myself a survivor of public education. I don't want that for my babies. So it wasn't like I was looking to get into a fight. I was already in fights, working in labor and organizing, doing all this stuff. But I start looking around my own community. Nobody's organized. We have no power. Our kids are being underserved and being pushed out. And it's this giant mess. And suddenly you start to see what the real problems are. So,
I mean, that's a question for me, though, Keri, is like, why a parents union? Why is it necessary? You and I will talk. And you guys had this fabulous event. Just for people watching who don't know about this, when Parents Union launched, they launched in New Orleans, very much the way that a union launches, which is it was democratic. There were people from across the country. They were able to come together and put their voices together. They were able to agree upon some principles and some guidelines and vote for, real power. Just as parents, what was interesting to me was how many parent stories there were that were similar. Like oftentimes we've had a bad experience and we feel like we're the only ones. So the next question I'm asking you is kind of like rhetorical in a way for me, but maybe not for a lot of other people. I mean, why do you need a national parents union when you have like a national PTA? You have teachers unions already that purport to be like, champions for children. And you have like Parents Across America, and you have these other groups. What's the need that you saw for a different organization, for a new organization?
So honestly, Chris, again, I'm reluctant founder. Like, it was never my intention, like, oh, I want to start up my own organization. I'm an organizer. I like to organize. I like to talk to people. I like to build power, do that kind of stuff. I'm not interested in founding organizations, but I couldn't find what we needed. First, when I was sitting by myself at the end of an IEP table, even with all of my privilege and agency, I was elected to the Democratic State Committee in Massachusetts, on the Democratic National Committee. Like, I got some juice. Like, I took not a lot and turned it into something. And so I have some privilege, but taking a look around when I was struggling and had no voice and no agency for my kids, I turned to the PTA. I was like, this can't be right. Like, who speaks for the parents? Because I'm sitting around a table filled with educators who have already given up on my kid who is 6 years old. So it can't be right. And the PTA said, oh, no, we don't do that. Like, we're here to support the school.
And the teachers mostly. Yeah.
For instance, God love the president of the Massachusetts PTA, but she's like a first or second year teacher from a suburban, like an upper class kind of suburban community, who used to be the student rep on the PTA. She's not speaking for parents. Like, she's very well intentioned, but she does not know the parent struggle, even in the best of circumstances. It's a different lens, a different perspective. So, and frankly, the PTAs are majority white. There's some tokenism you see going on there.
I love how you almost whispered that. It's majority white.
Teacher unions, we could get into this too, but like, I'm sorry, you cannot be the arbiters of equity. Your organization is majority white, and you're Karen in the classroom, because who's calling the cops on our kids? It's you. You can't be leading that conversation. You're not even having a conversation with your own membership around how problematic all of you are. So, like, there's been no restorative justice with us. You cannot be the leaders of that conversation. But,
you've had a long career in pushing these issues because there was a vacuum, because the PTA and others aren't doing this. But what have you learned that's new in now you hear stories from all across the country? Like, you're connected to so many more parents in different places. Are you seeing really commonalities across states, or are you seeing like wildly different things that people are experiencing? Maybe both. What is it that you're learning now that you're, connected to so many other parents?
I think we all have common concerns. I mean, the real nuance of the issues can be different from place to place, but fundamentally the problem is parents are left out of a conversation. So you've got folks, you've got bureaucrats, you've got elected officials, you've got experts who have no real lived experience, who are so far removed from the pain that they, like, part of it is white saviorism, part of it is, feeling is white supremacy, there's all of these things at play, but they think they know better than we do about our own kids. And so much judgment going on that, there can't be a conversation. And I think there's a lack of recognition. There's always this indictment of parents, like, parents aren't doing enough. You're not showing up on our terms. You won't go to that 3:00 in the afternoon parent teacher conference. There's always this, you're not doing enough, you, without a lack of recognition that, frankly, the majority of us are, again, survivors of the experience. There has been no restorative justice with us. So we know what our kids are going to experience, because sometimes the same racist teachers that taught us are the same racist teachers leading the classroom, or it's the same racist system, or all of this, all the underservice, the belief gap, that nothing has changed except for the fact that it has become a buzzword to say we need parent engagement. So now the expectation is all on us. Well, show up, engage with us. We don't want to engage with you. Like, show us who you are. We were sitting in those seats, and not a lot has changed other than the fact that you want us to show up on your terms. And frankly, the terms are supremacist, and it's we know what our kids are going to get. So our expectation is that our kids will just survive the experience, not thrive. And we want more than that. I want more than that. And the commonality I see across this country, it may come in different flavors, may come in different styles, but parents are fighting desperately because they want better for their kids. They want equitable access to opportunity. And they're not signing up for your charter wars or your Red for Ed, like the manipulation. It's like Stockholm syndrome, where you're lining up parents to fight for a system that has victimized them, and it stands to victimize their kids and send them into the school to prison pipeline. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's why we want to disrupt that conversation. And frankly, what we've done, we don't parachute into anybody's community and say, this is the model. This is how you organize, or this is what it's got to look like. You know, listen, Massachusetts Parents United works here in Massachusetts. It may not work in Minneapolis. It may not work in Tulsa. It may not work in Austin. They do it their own way. But we have common interests. And frankly, we got to share some best practices, because that's what unions do. It comes down from the mothership. The campaign is dispersed, so they're united behind a common set of issues, and then they run the play on the ground. So what we do is say, listen, we have common interests too, which is making sure that everyone is focused in the education game on the number one job, our kids access to opportunity. It's not all these sideshows. It's not turf wars about governance models. We're not here for that. You want to call it a district school, you want to call it a charter school, you want to call it Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, we don't care. We're here for
I'm glad you said that, because I've joked with some people who organize parents that with all the traveling I've done and speaking to so many different people, I'm always suspicious when I meet with grassroots parents, and they have the sense and the feel of parents, you know, the ones I really want to talk to. And they say something to me like, you know, Chris, what we really need is a universal enrollment system. I'm always a little bit like, you know, because in 10 years of working in social services, most of which working with moms directly impacted by, you know, economic insecurity, I never heard one of them come into my office and say, you know, I need some housing assistance and I need a universal enrollment system. Right. So I'm always a little suspicious when it's something uber specific like that, and it's about a governance model. But let me ask you this. You guys, I think, have a great situation in organizing parents that don't normally get a voice. I'm thinking about some national parent organizations where it feels like it's easier to organize middle-class white women to do things like save our schools instead of save our students, and that they will find other women who agree with them who aren't middle-class white women, but they will they will marginalize those who don't fit the bill, right? And how do those parents compete? How do the parents that get marginalized, the ones that do have issues with the schools, the ones who do have children that are not having the Disneyland experience in schools, how do they get power to be able to compete?
So organizing is key. We see this, you know, in Boston, where I'm sitting right now all the time. It's like the co-opting of parent voice, because you see that electeds many times only want to hear from certain parents. The parents show up and speak on the talking points they want to hear and validate the agenda, which is politically expedient for them to follow. And it's typically, again, you know, the white parents with agency, with money, with the time to show up, you know, because, you know, I don't know, they don't have to work 2 jobs to hold it down for their kids. Like, or, you know, they've been contacted because it's easier to engage them through email, because they're getting messages through mainstream sources, where you see school districts not wanting to engage parents through ethnic media. There's a whole host of reasons. How do we overcome those problems? And, you know, part of the thing is building trust and doing that tough, unsexy organizing work, because again, this is about relationship building, and there have been no relationships built. There has been no restorative justice with folks that, again, survivors of the education experience, now they're expected to engage. They know when, just because you're poor, black, or brown doesn't mean you're stupid. You know when people are talking down to you. And frankly, if you're working 2 jobs and you got a couple of kids and you're worried about safety in your neighborhood, you're worried about affordable housing, food stability, everything else, if you think parents are then going to waste their time engaging with a bunch of racist folks that aren't going to listen to them anyway, like, why would anybody sign up for that? Why would anybody do that?
Mm-hmm.
So the last opportunity we have is to organize ourselves, to sit and have conversations with ourselves. That's why, like, we started off in libraries where we would just talk about what's happening in this neighborhood. What are we really concerned about? And it's magic when one mama's talking to another mama, because it gets very real, because we speak the same language. And we're willing to say, like, it'd be very real talk about it and say, okay, this is really bothering us. Should we take action about it? How should we take action about it?
Mm-hmm.
It gets very upsetting. Like, for instance, the first time we started showing up at school committee meetings or showing up in the Boston Globe, the white moms that had previously shown up with, signs they had created in Google Translate.
No, you didn't. No shade, no tea.
That sign says what you think you want it to. It's like Spanish, right? We put some foreign words on a poster. So
right.
No, honey. They get very upset when we speak for ourselves, because our only agenda are our children. We don't care about political turf wars. We don't care about your drama. We're here to hold you accountable. We have our own agenda. And this is not a hobby for us. Like, I don't, Chris, I'm like you. We got 5 little boys between 7 and almost 13 running around this house. So that's my real job, is mama to Matthew, Miles, and David, and doing this work. It's not a luxury. It's not, it's actually pretty selfish, so we show up on our own terms. It's very unsettling because it disrupts the status quo, but we don't get our power from the school. We don't get our power from the teachers union, which makes them very upset, because we're not asking anybody for permission.
Let's talk about this part, though, because you say my family's my real job. My parent, God gave my kids one kind of fierce warrior, and that's me. So, well, 2, I mean, be careful about that one. Say that too loud in this house, but not anybody in the public who's the warrior for our kids. So that's our real agenda. But yet when we bump up against people that are very protective about the system, they want to tell us that we have a different agenda. And then they want to discount us because they want to somehow marginalize us so that we're not heard. Right. So you step out there and you say, I want I want to hold the system accountable. I want very specific reforms. And then they want to talk about your organization and your funding and who you're a front for and all this, as if they have a license to erase all of your lived experience up until that point. Now, you have dealt with that. I've dealt with that. What I haven't figured out is how to teach people new to the game how to deal with that, because it's scandalous, Keri. It's scandalous. Like, there will be a middle-class, college-educated white woman looking down her nose at a woman of color who is raising multiple kids with a real struggle, and discount her completely because of who she associates with through nonprofits or something like that. It's fascinating, but it's hard to prepare people for it.
I'm gonna put it right out there. Like, they never come for me, or they used to try to come for me personally until I got real public about my background. Oh, you want to talk about who I am and how I come to this work? And I got to tell you, every time I have to say these words, it's trauma for me, because it's the great shame of my life. The fact that, I grew up in a family that was not healthy. I experienced the foster care system. I was very angry when I was a teenager. I was bright. I was identified as gifted and talented. But I was a pissed off kid. And the same teachers who were filing 51A reports with the Department of Children and Families here in Massachusetts were the same ones that were eager to kick me out of the only place that was stability for me, which was school. So you're not going to comfort. Like, I didn't learn about this stuff in grad school. I didn't learn about it, in a workshop. This is my lived experience. They're not going to take that from me. But every time I have to say those words, it's a great shame, and it's reliving that trauma. And I got to tell you, I have only started talking about the fact that 20 years after the fact, I was still having nightmares about getting thrown out of school. That PTSD has not gone away from me. I still have to go to therapy about that whole experience for me, and that part of my life that was just, I was underserved, I was pushed out, I was left, I was discounted, they were not interested in helping me. And every time we ask parent advocates to get up and tell their personal story, we're asking them for a lot. We're asking them to reveal pieces of themselves that are very painful. The idea that you pick the wrong school for your child in pre-K, and they can be off track and not, reading a grade level by the third grade, and they could be on track for the school to prison pipeline. The guilt and the shame, and then having to have a parent talk about, racist teachers, how they were underserved, how the kids the failure that they feel as a parent because they've been robbed of information, so they weren't able to make the right choices for their kids.
But I would think that creates power. I would feel I would think that would create a sense of power when you're facing somebody who didn't grow up in the struggle, who's trying to discount you. It seems like you would say, "Oh no, you picked the right one today. You're not going to come for me in that way." It feels like it wouldn't be a shame-based thing. It would be actually more of an aggression type thing to be able to say to someone directly to their face, no.
But
you're not going to come at me with that privileged nonsense.
It is both, Chris, because it takes years of having to ready yourself to go up against somebody who tries to speak over you, who tries to speak for you, who tries to discount you and your lived experience, who knows nothing about your struggle and wants to come for you because you have written a grant to the Walton Family Foundation, and you're evil because you get money from Walmart. You know what? I shop at Walmart.
I was about to say, listen, people are not going to like us saying that, Keri. People don't get that, but
I shop at Walmart. Okay. I am an organizer. I write my own damn grants. Okay? I have successfully organized so that I can help facilitate other women across this nation to do powerful organizing work. In any other conversation, I would be held up as a hero, as a triumph, as a victory. The struggle would be celebrated. Look at what she was able to build, except in this conversation. Because it is so powerful what we are able to build, and disruptive and threatening to the status quo, that the only thing they can come for us, because they can't take our lived experience. And
do you think that's why they come at you so hard with all their privilege and want to discount you quickly, is because they fear you? They fear that you're about to have an impact somewhere that they don't want you to. So they feel like they'll just cut you off.
Chris, of course that's what it is. Listen, before we even, when it was revealed that we were, because we're a very democratic union. Okay, we had put together kind of because you got to put together an organizing plan, right? And so we put together an organizing plan, and we wanted people to join us and collaborate and co-create. So I put together a plan, and I was sending it out to different organizers to say, hey, would you be down with this? Will you help us come build this, just as a concept? Okay, so somebody sent that concept to the heads of the teachers union before we even founded and had a vote to found the organization. They were already coming for us in the media. Even the idea that this would happen was so powerful that you can Google it. Randy Weingart had something to say before we even vote. So the fact of the matter is, you can't deny us. So the only way that you can come for us is to say, oh, they get money from Walmart. Yeah, you know what? Single mothers built Walmart. I buy a lot of socks. I buy a lot of underwear. They're trying to live. I got boys here. And
that's a very classist situation, though, Keri. If we're being real, The people who have the luxury of saying, well, first of all, like I only shop at Target, as if like the same sweatshop shit ain't in Target that is in everywhere else. But it's luxurious when you've never been in this situation. Let me explain this situation to you that I'm sure you can probably like understand as parents. When you have a kid, you don't get paid until Friday, and you have a kid who comes home on Wednesday and says, I forgot to tell you there's this thing in my backpack and I need something by tomorrow. Like I need these things that cost $80 by tomorrow or $40, whatever. And they have no reckoning of what it's like to know that you're 2 days away from payday and that you're really not going to have that money until Friday. You will become a Walmart shopper so fast. So if people don't understand the struggle of like wanting to find the lowest price on everything as often as you can, this becomes like a battle of class in these discussions that we have. Because I look at people sometimes and be like, it must be really good to be you, to where your biggest worry in the world is what governance model school has. Because like there's some other stuff going on in our families right now that require us to not even listen to you when you talk about our funding. But I've seen them come for you in a way that I think is really interesting, because your story is the story I think that everybody should hear, so that others who have a similar story can feel empowered. They can feel just like you. They can look at you and say, I want to be like Keri one day, where I don't give two Fs about what anybody is thinking. I'm going to say my piece. But the way they just like, I will watch you engage with a old ass white man in a college who just comes after you constantly in a blog. I watch Diane Ravitch with her private school ass kids that are grown now come at you like talking about your funding. And then a nation of like privileged white women will have your name on all their blogs and in their Twitter feeds. And I just don't know how like I get some of that, but I don't know how you continuously withstand that.
You know what? As long as they spell my name right. Again, like it is such a place of privilege to weigh in on this conversation when you feel like it, because it does not directly impact your life. Do you not understand that is such incredible privilege? If I don't weigh in on this conversation, the consequences for my kids, poverty, incarceration, and death. Okay, Diane Ravitch doesn't know that life. The women I work with in the National Parents Union who got this organization know that life. We don't do this work because it's easy, because it's glamorous, because let me tell you, it is none of those things. Do you think there are not days when I beat myself up, I cry, I'm like, oh my God. And that is why we also had to build the National Parents Union, because the National Parents Union, for me, that is my strength. Those are my people. That is my church, as our friend Christy Joyce, who organizes in Kansas City, says, because we need a place that is safe for us to go and say, you know what? I'm getting my butt kicked in this state today. I'm getting my butt kicked in my region, but we all have each other's back. We all understand this struggle. We all understand why it's so important. We can share when we get pissed off, when we don't see even our allies moving with the amount of urgency that we want to see. We need a safe space where we can come together and be like, this is wrong, but we're going to work together to change it. And frankly, the fact of the matter is, I am so blessed every single day that I get to work with these folks, because I want to make it very clear. This is not the Keri Show. This organization is guided by 16 people, the National Parents Council, who meet every single week. They guide we have a voting subcommittee. We have an education subcommittee. We have a policy subcommittee. We have a testing and health subcommittee working on coronavirus equity issues around health, making sure that we have equity in testing and we don't end up as guinea pigs when it comes to the vaccination process, because that's what mamas are thinking about too. So it's all of these incredibly brilliant women. I'm lucky I got elected to be their ambassador. So I get to go out and fight 24/7 on their behalf. But none of this happens without these incredibly beautiful, strong women of color. And, shout out to Colleen Cook too. And we do have Nehemiah Frank, who is one of our token men. But, honestly, it's women of color.
You got to stop that, Keri. You got to stop that. As a lifelong male parent advocate who was in this game as a militant father, militant. The only reason I'm talking to you today, if my oldest, he's probably in this feed. He's probably in this feed somewhere and is going to make a crack about my shirt any minute now. But when it was me and him, like really fighting this thing out, I was militant as hell. And oftentimes, to be real with you, this is a good point to bring up to you, Keri, actually, as a Black man who was like dedicated and fighting, like my kid's going to college, damn it. I don't give a damn. He's not going to have my educational life. He's not going to have my catastrophe. I always found myself in rooms with women. No, like when I would go, like they'd say dad's night or come show up to this thing or whatnot. It would be me and like 4 women in some little, gym or something. And I had to get used to that, and it began to hit me that the schools weren't thinking about dads very much. They weren't thinking about outreach to us very much.
I gotta say, we do have a couple men on the council. We do know that this is a deficit, and we're opening up channels. So we have a program on the National Parents Channel, Facebook, and all of our social media channels called Dad to Dad, where it's dads talking to dads about dad issues, whether it comes to education or just being a dad, to have that safe space conversation. 4 dads from across the country just being real talk. And it is some of the most powerful messaging and conversations I've ever heard in my life. I don't miss it because I love to hear that perspective. That's not my lens, but it's a lens and an important part of the conversation. So we're working on it. And if folks are listening right now, your men, your daddies who want to get on, and uncles too, because the family is not just moms and dads. We got a lot of aunties and uncles, and as well as
guardians. Like we have to start talking about guardians, because parents is and I'm sure you already do talk about guardians, but I think they get left out sometimes. That there's a lot of grandmas raising kids right now for many reasons, and grandpas raising kids. Let's stay with this men thing for a minute, though. I think this is really interesting because I love what you said about people having fellowship and having backup, because there's oftentimes you're going to find somebody in their community who's the only one, like feels totally alienated. Like they show up to the board meetings and they're fighting something and they look around, they really don't have anybody. And then they come to a gathering like yours in New Orleans where they all see each other and they're like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. Like, we have similar stuff going on. I think more than anything else, the dads need that fellowship with with women, though, in this one way. All the blowback that you get when a Black man is getting that type of blowback from, for instance, like the white moms of Washington State who want to save their schools or whatnot, it puts you in a weird situation as a Black male to have to take that type of crap from a white woman who's privileged. And if you return fire in the way that you want to, what happens then. All the stereotypes come out. So you really do have to look around you for some backup, like for some other people to go in and have your back. I hope y'all are working on that. I'm just saying it's something I've experienced.
And it is a deficit that we have, and I think that it is something, but the thing that is different about the National Parents Union is that when we see that we're missing someone from the table, we don't sit and say, well, I guess it's just because they're not engaged, or like we're like, okay, let's get to work. Let's fix this. So like you take a look at our movement and who has seats at the table. When we first started this, we were very intentional. We said, yes, it was going to be parents. Of course, it's going to be parents of color. But we looked at grandparents. We got tons of grandparents. You're seeing grandparents in the comments right here. We got grandmas, we got grandpas, we got foster parents. We have formerly incarcerated parents. A whole other different lens and a whole other different world that's never represented. LGBTQAI parents that are never represented, a whole other sector at our table. Parents who are in recovery, rebuilding their lives, that don't have a lot of agency and respect and feel like they're at a disadvantage because, they may have struggled in the past. They are welcome at our table. We try to take a look comprehensively about who are parents, who are families, what is the intersectionality we're missing? And when there is somebody missing from the table, We are holding that seat. We welcome them. We want to improve. We are not a static organization. Like, this is the way we do that. That's not. It is a collaborative, co-creative. And when we need to correct, something that inspired me from the charter movement, we need to pivot. We need to move. Something's not working. The data tells us we're off. We are moving and changing. And that is what makes us special too.
How do you guys work with race? How do you make it safe for all races and all backgrounds and cultures to work together?
I think from the very beginning, we were very intentional about it, and intentionally in New Orleans created an environment where that was okay. So we had what was very important to me, in New Orleans, was not to bring in a bunch of fancy folks who were going to talk at parents in a room. I've been to that conference. I've been to that conference 10 times, and or parents are the sideshow. Like, okay, we're going to have all of the experts kind of be the star of the show, and then we'll have our little parent panel. We flipped that script and we said, actually, parents are going to get up and speak their truth. We're going to invite folks to come and listen and share, and we're going to intentionally stack that intersectionality and break down some walls from the beginning. So the very first night, what I thought was extraordinary is that, we had women of color getting up there and speaking their truth, Vivette Dukes, Mary McGrath, all of these folks sharing. And then all of a sudden we invite Colleen Cook. So you know Colleen. And
I love me some Colleen. Colleen, if you're watching, I love you. I think you're amazing. She does great work and has a tough story. She's amazing.
She is incredible, right? So look at Colleen. If you don't know Colleen, you don't know her story. It's like, okay, here's this white lady from Oklahoma. What does she know about this life? What does she know about a struggle? She doesn't know anything. And she got up there and shared her heart as a mother, a devastated mother who had just lost her stepbrother and her grandson to domestic violence and her heartbreak. And did it in a way that was just so honest and truthful. It made it safe for us all to be able to share our truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that is what, again, is very different about us. We are a sacred space, and we have created this where it is okay to show up with your pain, with your trauma, because we get strength from each other. This is more than just, an organization we started to build. This is a family. These are relationships and bonds, and we show up for each other. And it's because of the strength of the people who are at that table being willing to be courageous that we're able to do it.
I got to stop talking about Colleen because it messes me up every time. It kind of messes me up a little bit. But you did set a really good table at that event for moms, white moms that were working on free and appropriate education issues, for instance, and dyslexia, and moms who had an incarcerated parent, or moms who, just were marginalized for different reasons, but it was a rare mix. You don't always see that mix of people. And I love the fact that you're setting more of an open table, because there's more power in that. Let's just be real with each other. I think it's going to take a multiracial movement to really make this system be responsive to the needs of parents. What else do you think it's going to take to jolt the system? Like, the system needs jolting. It doesn't respect parents. It definitely doesn't respect parents that it doesn't consider to be essential parents. So what's going to jolt it? How are we going to kick it in the ass a little bit?
Organizing is key. There is a reason why they try to keep us from each other, and why they try to keep us at bay, because parents organizing, I always say, like, we are the most powerful, most misunderstood, most valuable asset that we have in education reform. But people are too afraid of what parents have to say, and they don't value organizing, so they don't fund it in an equitable way. I find very interesting is that, like, I will have organizations all day long contacting me, trying to get in front of either our National Parents Union Council, which is the council of leaders, the most powerful parent advocates in the nation, I would say, or trying to get in front of the entire body of the National Parents Union, because they do parent-facing work, but they don't face any parents. to the network because the network is valuable, but they don't value what it takes and the relationship building and the personal connection and the work and the labor that it takes to actually put that together. So valuing that that's important is definitely key, and recognizing that and why it's important. And then not being afraid, you know, of the fact that, yeah, parents might check you. You might be on the wrong track. I think in what I've seen, you know, and I've only been in ed reform about 6 years because I only got into this, you know, selfishly because my kid was in trouble about 6 years ago. But what I see in this world is that, you know, folks only want to engage so much until they hear something that challenges their belief, you know, whether it's the status quo or some innovative idea they have. So they're afraid that parents might push back. That pushback might actually make your innovation better, might actually get you to the outcome that you need, but you might actually have to tweak your idea. And, you know, parents challenging you or having voice, it's worth that investment. It's worth that risk. But again, you know, you cannot have this white supremacist, you know, white savior complex going on that, you know, I'll think for you. Well, your anecdote is really powerful. Your story is really powerful. And that's why you have to listen to me as a white man. Like I can't tell you how many conferences I've gone to where it's like 5 parents of color up there were sharing our pain. And then at the end, it's like, and here's the white guy who's got the idea that's going to turn everything like.
This is really important though, Keri. I'm glad that you're raising this and you're courageous for raising it. This point, like I have every faith and belief are going to be the type of leader that's going to protect your parents from being used. But let's just be real with each other. People on all sides like to use parents, like to have parents show up just in time for a situation and then not talk to them again until they need them to just in time show up again. And, you know, kind of just like props in some ways. And I know you're not about that life, which I think is really, really, really important that you protect. But for those who watch my show know we do so much history, there once was a thing called Hottentot Woman, and people should look it up. Hottentot Woman was Black women with really unique body styles that white people would marvel at, and they would find the most kind of out of shape ones that they could find, and then like a circus travel them from city to city and have people look at them like a freak show of sorts. And there's a long history to this with women and with moms and you know, trotting people out for other people to marvel at and whatnot. It's a grotesque example, but it only fits because I have been at conferences where that has popped up in my mind that, oh, you're that group of parents that they're trotting out here in the middle of their all white panels and their all white everything else. And over lunch, here comes your parent that you're trotting out to tell a desperate story, to cry on cue, tell the same story, by the way, over and over and over again in different rooms for the same white audience. That's not where our power is, right? Yeah.
Chris, what you're dancing around is the term poverty pimping. Okay.
Ooh, see, I was trying not to go there, but okay, damn.
It is, okay. Let's sit down over lunch and listen to parents tell their tale of woe. So it will inspire you to go and save them, rather than saying, you know, maybe we should sit down and have a conversation with them about this idea. We're getting and we're making some progress in some spaces where we're now being invited to the table, you know, not as the icing on the cake, but, you know, talking about the fact that, you know, we're baking a cake. You know, I always equate it to that because it's like you need to start to engage parents from the beginning if you want to be successful. Right? You know, we should be a part of the conversation, not when the cake is already baked, not when you've already decided on the ingredients. We should be a part of the conversation when we decide whether or not a cake is what we should be baking. You know,
maybe it should be pie.
Maybe it should be pie. Maybe we should be making spaghetti and meatballs. And maybe you should listen to other folks that are going.
And maybe you shouldn't put raisins in the potato salad. I'm just saying, maybe you shouldn't do that. No walnuts, no raisins in the potato salad. That's not working.
Well, you're laughing, but that's really the thing. Is like, you know, folks keep bringing us, you know, and literally it's Karen bringing us potato salad with, you know, raisins in it, and then wondering why no one's eating it and everyone's sick, you know, like
I have to tell you too, at some of these conferences, it's the worst food ever. It's expensive, bad food. It's like soup, you know, it's super expensive. And as you're eating it, you're like, what the hell is this that they got on this plate right here?
is meant to be an empanada. I'm
Yes.
just
It's not all happening. You know, which is really interesting about schools too, because when it comes to things like food and culture, whatnot, even my school district, but other schools that I've seen wrangle over this. We had a tamale night and the Mexican parents didn't come. We had a chicken night and the black parents didn't come, you know, and it's kind of like, do you hear yourself as you're talking? This is why I think we need a national organization that lifts up the marginalized so that we could start getting some better understanding from the system and some jolts to the system.
And people are actually making comments about the NPU conference and the food, how it was so good.
It was good. But it was New Orleans. Come on, it was my town. So, you know.
It was also the only hotel in New Orleans owned by a Black woman.
And it was nice.
We spend our money with our communities, and very intentionally so.
So money is important. Let's talk about how we get a real parent movement resourced, because we know that all the organizing in the world and all the power in the world still requires money, still requires resources. And in education world, one of the last things that is funded is marginalized parent power, right? The unions want parents that are compliant and support teachers and support their agenda 100%, or else you're gone. You are dead to me. There are reform organizations that only want to talk to you on cue when they need you to come cry and then go home. And you're building a real movement. How do we get this movement resourced fully?
You know, what is really difficult that I have found, like I'm very blessed that, you know, we have some true believers. And frankly, we have very powerfully not just talked about it, but we are about it. Like, we can quantify our work. It is clear. You know, we can show them results, because even here in Massachusetts, like, if you need somebody to show up with 1,000 parents, you want to build past that we wrote, all that kind of, like, we have tangible results. But the fact of the matter is, like, we were expected to deliver those tangible results before we were funded. You know, like, organizations like, you know, I'm blessed that we had seed funding again from the Walton Family Foundation. They believed that, you know, we had an idea that we could organize not just around education, but around safer neighborhoods, affordable housing, equitable access to food, as well as equitable access to high quality education, and that parents deserve to have a voice, and never told us what to say or what to do. And it was outside the traditional model, but they gave us the seed money so that we could prove that even with less funding than they had given, like other philanthropists had given to any other organizations, we were going to show the power of parents if we were actually able to organize. You know, unfortunately, you know, a lot of, you know, organizing and parent organizing is very scary, because, you know, frankly, many foundations, many donors have been lied to about what possible, because, you know, you get the song and dance from a very slick dude who's showing up with this wonderful, you know, glossy prospectus with promises that they're going to be able to quantify love on a spreadsheet for you. And frankly, like, we're real organizers. We're not perfect. We're, you know, we're a little messy. We don't, you know, show up in the ways that are traditional in this space, but we are the most effective. And the group of women that we have collected and organizations that we have collected as part of our beautiful network and this beautiful fabric, you know, these are the folks that have the relationships, that have the proven track record of, if you actually want to help families directly, you want to get to the doorstep, you want to make sure kids are getting fed, that water is getting to be, like, we're the organizations that do that front level work. So by us, like, the, you know, you're getting more return on your investment than you would with, pound for pound with a lot of other organizations. I would.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have had to do more to prove yourself? One, because you're a woman, and two, because you're not the prospectus people, the people that show up with the McKinsey background and who say, now I want to, start a nonprofit with parents, and I have a Harvard, McKinsey background, so I know how to count all the beans.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I always say is the thing that makes me incredibly good at this work is the thing that makes me incredibly bad at fundraising. Like, I didn't go to Harvard Business School. Like, I can't pick up the phone and call my Harvard buddies and have them drop checks to me. Like, that's not my life. I don't know billionaires. Like, that's not a thing for me. What I am good at is organizing people and bringing people together to fight for justice. I've done it my whole life. I've been in movement, I've been in environmental justice, and now I'm doing it for my own people. That's what I'm good at. So I can do that work, but now having to go out and make the pitch and convince people, a lot of the time, like, it's just about, making the connection with people and letting them know that this work exists and it is powerful. But I got to tell you something, Chris, if we had the money and the resources to do what we actually wanted to do, there would be no stopping us. There would be no stopping these groups at all. And that's my job. Like, my job is to, and it's tough and it's scary and it gives me an ulcer, because like, people depend. I know you feel this too. Like, so I'm the leader of this organization. I've got families that depend on me. I got organizations that need help. And I think about those families, and I think about the families we impact. And I feel like I can't work hard enough or fast enough or get in front of people. But it feels like a circular firing squad sometimes, because it's like, the work is so obviously powerful and is making change and is changing conversations. I mean, having 10 parents leading a conversation in USA Today, having organizations that are on the front line and getting them resources for homeless families during COVID-19. Like, I can quantify those things. We're in the New York Times today. I'm going to go on CNN in a few minutes talking about the perspective of families and parents. It's my job to actually convince philanthropy to believe in this and get over whatever fear factor they have about the efficacy of this, because it's
show me the money. I know you got to run soon, but before you do, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, before you head on over there, you've made some noise about COVID and school reopenings and rushing it. Can you give us kind of like your 1 minute on where you think we are with the politics of reopening, and explicitly for what it means for parents?
Yeah, I've learned a lot, and kind of, thinking back to an earlier part of our conversation, Chris, about how we're the anecdote crew. Like, people love to hear anecdotes from us, but we also know that it's easy to dismiss anecdotes without data. We know, like, we get it. So we're the folks that come not just with the pitchforks, but with the solutions and the ideas, right? So
I like that.
Like, we're pissed, but here's what we want you to do. Because if you're pissed and you get a seat at that table, the first thing they're going to do is say, well, what are your ideas? So we have to come with ideas. So we did polling, an 8-week tracking poll. We're paused right now. We're going to start it up again in the fall, so that we're constantly talking with thousands of parents to make sure we can quantify with data how families are feeling across America, making sure the demographics are reflective of families across the country. So what we did is we quantified that. We know by a 2-to-1 margin, families are not interested in going back in the box, the same education box. They look at this challenge as an opportunity to innovate. They also do not want to return to schools until they get the all clear from public health officials. So it's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump, in a poll where 35% of folks identified as Republican, only 5% of families across America said that they trust Donald Trump to make the decision on reopening schools, aside from the fact that that's not even his job. He doesn't have that control. Betsy DeVos was a hot mess this weekend. I mean, and it is quite clear, I think, to parents that, the economy cannot reopen without us. We cannot re-enter the economy and be the worker bees you need us to be unless schools are. So now it's open schools by any means necessary. The fact of the matter is, parents overall 4 out of 10 say they don't even want to return to in-person school until there's a vaccine. Non-white parents are like, hell no.
Even more. Yeah. Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, Chris, we could not trust these schools to get us running water, functioning bathrooms, toilet paper, soap, paper towels, keeping rats out of many of our schools during pre-COVID times. Mm-hmm. And now you talk to us that you're going to keep our kids safe from a deadly virus in society. Like, who do you think you're fooling? We don't trust you.
Mm-hmm. And they are basically saying, trust us.
Yeah.
And you just trust us.
We're not there.
Well, Keri, you're amazing. You are awesome, awesome warrior. I've known you for a while now, and just like really appreciate watching you from a distance. You're like a glowing star in this movement because you really do care about the parents. And I actually think all the power is with the parents. It's the only thing I have hope in. I don't have hope in like everybody else or any, there's no light at the end of the tunnel except for parent power to me. That's it.
I got to say, we all do this work in solidarity.
We sure do. I mean, that's the thing I love about you too. You understand that it takes all of us. So anyways, for everybody listening and watching, Keri's Twitter handle has been going across the bottom. So please contact her. If you're someone who wants to start a parent union locally, or you want to be part of the National Parents Union, Keri is very accessible. So hit her up on Twitter, and then also you can hit me up if you want more information about them and you can't wait, and I will get it to you. Keri, have a great day, dude. You do your best work today on CNN and all the fancy. I appreciate you like squeezing me in between the real people.
I'm trying to be an ambassador for the truth here. So you fired me up. I think I'm ready.
All right, go for it. I'll be watching you over there too. Thank you, Keri.
All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.